We have more good information coming out that we in the Second Amendment community are going to be able to use against the anti-gunners in our ongoing litigation to knock out so-called assault weapon bans. The Wall Street Journal has just done us a huge favor by writing a powerful article on the AR-15, and I don't know whether they understand what they've done or not, but they have given us some fantastic evidence that we're going to be able to use in court in AR-15 ban cases. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this, especially if you're litigating in these courts over these cases. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the 4 Box of Dine, a proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the U.S. Supreme Court Bar, and author of the brand new best-selling book, Israel Disarmed, What the 10/7 Attacks Teach Americans About the Right to Bear Arms. Check it out on Amazon. All right, folks, I'm in a suit today. Just finished off Fox and Friends first there, talking about President Trump. I thought it was going to be a slow news week, but it's gotten to be a heavy news week, so you're going to probably see me in a suit some more. Okay, so here's the bottom line. Wall Street Journal wrote a big article on the AR-15 because the attempted assassin on Donald Trump on Saturday supposedly used an AR-style or AR-15 rifle. I'm sure we'll get more details about that. So that's given rise to these articles about the AR-15 because these journalists have to fill their I'm sure they have to fill their quotas and write column inches to publish. So big article in the Wall Street Journal, but there's some very good information in here we're going to be able to use because just to jog your memory, as you well know, the legal standard for whether or not you can ban a firearm or a type of firearm is if it's in common use by Americans for lawful purposes, it simply cannot be banned. That is sufficient for us to win those Second Amendment cases. Now, there may be other ways for us to win those cases, but certainly if a weapon is in common use by Americans for lawful purposes, and the AR-15 undeniably is, it cannot be banned. Now, I understand that those cases are still in the lower courts, but this is where the Supreme Court's going to come out because that's exactly what they did in Heller. They're going to follow Heller. You'll see. And hopefully we get one of those AR-15 cases up there sooner rather than later on a final judgment. Okay? So the reason why I mention that's legal standard is because the Wall Street Journal has done another fine job of laying out critical information that can be cited in the courts, not just the lower courts, but ultimately the Supreme Court, making the case that these AR-15s are ubiquitous. They are not only are they in common use, they're literally everywhere because Americans have these in the tens of millions of them. So to begin with, the article, and I'll put a link to it down below, has a subtitle that says, America's most popular and most despised rifle once again is at the center of a national crisis. Now the reality is this. There are 9 states that have banned AR-15s in one form or another, and those 9 states are really controlled by a couple cities, okay? If you look at the counties of those 9 states, the bulk of the counties are pro-Second Amendment. So you're looking at 9 states that are controlled by a handful of nutty deep blue cities and deep blue state politicians, and that is it. The rest of America, 41 states, have no restrictions on AR-15s or anything of the sort. And, again, here's the article saying a divisive symbol, despised rifle. It's despised by a handful of people in the grand scheme of things in the United States. That's the reality of it. But, of course, they have to make it appear as if it's somehow a balanced fight, 50-50, when, of course, it's simply not true. Nevertheless, the point is they are admitting that the AR-15 is America's most popular rifle. They go on to say the following, quote, the gun fired at Donald Trump on Saturday, the AR-15, is the most popular rifle in America. Did you hear what I just said? This is the Wall Street Journal reporting. The AR-15 is the most popular rifle in America. Extremely powerful evidence. It's the sort of thing that the U.S. Supreme Court will take a look at and will be like, hey, that's fantastic. That means it's in common use. It cannot be banned. What's interesting is this article also goes on to point out some of the great benefits of owning an AR-15 and why people own AR-15s, which again will be able to use in court, including ultimately in the U.S. Supreme Court. The article from the Wall Street Journal goes on to say the following, that the gun's popular qualities, which are that it has a lightweight profile, it's easy to handle, meaning easy handling, and the ability to shoot lots of bullets quickly. Not sure how accurate that is. I guess it is if you have a fast trigger finger, have made it a blockbuster. But you hear what I just said? The Wall Street Journal has written the following. The gun's popular qualities, a lightweight profile, easy handling, and ability to shoot lots of bullets quickly, have made it a blockbuster. The number of ARs in civilian hands rose from 400,000 in the early 1990s to more than 20 million by the 2020s. Powerful evidence. Again, more and more evidence that shows how ubiquitous these guns are, how common they are, the better it is for us to win our cases in the Supreme Court and in the lower courts if they apply the law right. But of course, the anti-gun judges like Judge Easterbrook are never going to apply the law right because that's just the way they are. But we're never going to win over the terrible anti-gun judges. They're a waste of time. That's the reality of it. But nevertheless, the courts are going to apply the right standard. This is the sort of thing that we undeniably be able to use to win for the home team. Some other great language in the article goes on to say the following. Cultural and political shifts over the past 3 decades have transformed the civilian version of the gun, that's the AR-15, from a niche product to a mass market phenomenon. Hear what I just said? A mass market phenomenon. Today, the AR-15 has become the indelible icon of the nation's prolonged argument over the role of guns in society. Millions of gun owners embrace the rifle as a symbol of Second Amendment rights. Okay, I agree with that, except the truth is, I really think in many respects the argument about guns is over. I know it's hard to say that because we're fighting in these terrible states, but the fact is we have, basically permitless carry in almost 30 states, and that number is growing. And again, once you go to permitless carry, those states don't go back. They've never gone back in modern history. So I'm not sure there's still a debate about guns. There is a debate about guns among certain powerful segments in our society, elite politicians with billionaire donors and naive young people from college campuses perhaps that don't know anything. Yeah, there is that threat. There's certainly a threat to our right to keep and bear arms by people that want to disarm us because they have big plans for us, and they're not going to be able to make us do what they want us to do unless, of course, we're disarmed and have no choice but to go along with their arguably tyrannical plans. One never knows what people have in mind. One cannot predict the future. As we saw on Saturday with the assassination attempt, the reality is the history of the future has yet to be written. So you simply cannot know what you're going to need, when you're going to need it in the future. It's impossible, and our founding fathers understood this, and to make sure we had the ability to fend off all forms of tyranny, including tyrannical governments, tyrannical invaders, tyrannical street criminals, and the like, they ensured we had a Bill of Rights, including the right to keep and bear arms. Now, as a side note, it's interesting, this Wall Street Journal article points out that gun control activists have seized on the idea that a man armed with an AR-15 almost got to one of the world's most protected leaders. Then they quote somebody from the Brady gun control group. Here's the thing, though. The events of Saturday, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, do not speak to arguments in favor of gun control. It does absolutely the opposite. It demonstrates that even if you are the most powerful man in the world, or one of the most powerful men in the world, surrounded by the Federal Secret Service, elite law enforcement agents supposedly, with all the protection in the world, you are still at risk of being killed by some bad people. Now, if Donald Trump, surrounded by Secret Service and local law enforcement, is still at risk from bad people, what does that mean for you and me? What does it mean for ordinary Americans that don't have the benefit of Secret Service, that don't have the benefit of armed security, that can't afford armed guards? The answer is the event on Saturday involving Donald Trump speaks to why we are all our own first responders. You can't trust anybody else to protect your life. You care more about your life than anybody else. Your family cares more about your life than anybody else. No stranger getting paid $25 an hour to wear a blue suit and a hat or a green outfit and patrol the highways, or a blue suit dressed like Melissa McCarthy. That is simply not adequate for protecting our lives in most occasions. Even if they're brave and heroic and competent, the truth is, as you know, that when seconds count, police are inevitably minutes away. And that was the case in Saturday, where the bad guy got off multiple shots. And the only reason why Donald Trump, thank God, was not murdered was really by the grace of God. It had nothing to do with law enforcement protecting him, because they did just the opposite. They did not protect him. That was obvious. Now, there's other powerful language in this article just showing how ubiquitous these guns are. Also in the article, this is what it says. Versions of the rifle are sold at gun stores everywhere, with prices ranging from a couple $100s to several thousand. Again, they're sold everywhere because everyone wants an AR-15. They're great guns. I love my AR-15s. They're fantastic. I wish I could actually have time to shoot them, but I don't. But I have them around for self-defense if I need them. Great guns. Let's continue on. And then the Wall Street Journal goes on to explain how a reason why they became popular after 9/11. Specifically, this is what the Wall Street Journal reports. After the September 11th attacks, the gun's appeal broadened with veterans who used the military version in Iraq and Afghanistan and with the wider public. The expiration of the federal assault weapons ban in 2004 and the passage of legislation to protect gun makers from lawsuits combined to create an ideal environment for large gun makers to manufacture, market, and sell large quantities of AR-15s. Again, more evidence, large quantities. We want to show these are in common use. And again, this article by the Wall Street Journal describes why they're so, another reason why they're so popular. This is what the journal writes. Americans who bought the rifle liked how easy it was to shoot and keep on target with its light recoil. The unique design made it easy to swap parts, earning the gun the nickname Legos for adults. More great information that can be used in court in favor of the Second Amendment, in favor of protecting semi-automatic rifles. The last point I want to make, it's kind of interesting here. I'm not sure anybody else will pick up on it, so I'm going to give it to you because a lot of you are probably thinking about this. As you know, the Vanderstock versus Garland case is going to be argued sometime this fall in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, this is the issue about the quote-unquote ghost guns, which is really an attempt by ATF, by the way, to expand the definition of frame or receiver beyond the statutory definition and the long-standing policy and regulations defining what a frame or receiver is, going all the way back literally until the 1960s. In fact, even arguably even before that. But we don't need to get into the details of the Vanderstock case here before the Supreme Court involving ghost guns, frames or receivers, and weapon parts kits, because we're going to have plenty of time to do that. But what's quite interesting here is there's a discussion of Eugene Stoner. Now, many of you know this even better than I do. Eugene Stoner was really the inventor of the AR-15, which of course is the Armalite company, not assault rifle, Armalite. And what's interesting though, and this is what could be used in the Vanderstock case for those of you involved with it, they say that Eugene Stoner was a quote-unquote a self-taught gun designer. Eugene Stoner was a self-taught gun designer. Now, the reason why that's important is I think it speaks to the issue of who, for example, might be interested in weapon parts kits or making their own guns. There's a long history in the United States of ordinary people making firearms. They're self-taught, they're tinkerers, they're garage makers. This is a long history going all the way back to the founding. And by the way, it's not just in the United States, because if you actually look overseas, Gaston Glock was a tinkerer in his garage, and he invented the Glock. Likewise, Kalashnikov over there in Russia, the Soviet Union, he invented the Kalashnikov. And again, he started off as another guy that was a tinkerer. So all these major gun developments over time, many of these were not invented by some big gun company. They were invented by small guys who liked to tinker, that liked to make things up, that were playing with guns, and they made great advancements in firearms technology. Just like Eugene Stoner, a self-taught gun designer. The reason why I speak about this topic in the context of the Vanderstock case is because the Vanderstock case is all about the ATF and the Department of Justice under Joe Biden trying to make it harder and harder and harder for people that want to be able to tinker and make their own guns and the like, because they want to force you to go through background checks to get your parts. Right? So now instead of going through one background check to buy a gun from an FFL, now you arguably will have to go through multiple background checks to get the different parts, because now the definition of firearm has been greatly expanded if, of course, the ATF DOJ wins their case. And, of course, if Donald Trump doesn't win, because if Donald Trump wins the White House, it's possible that his DOJ could withdraw the regulation and moot out the case. But only time will tell. We will see. Anyway, very good stuff here in the Wall Street Journal article. I'll put a link to it down below. The authors of this article actually wrote a book on the AR-15. I'll put a link to that book as well. If you want to check it out on Amazon, I actually have a copy of the book on the AR-15 by these Wall Street Journal authors. I haven't gotten to it. I haven't had a chance to read it. It's very long, but it is on my bookshelf at some point ready to read, and I hope to get to it very soon. Anyway, there you have it, folks. Hope you learned something. Make sure you follow me on X at 4Boxes Diner. Don't forget to subscribe here if you have not done so already, and we will see you again soon here at the 4Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.